Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. If you like all things true crime, if you like it delivered in a peaceful, tranquil manner, if you like it clear and concise without drama, then I highly recommend you subscribe. And if you like what you hear, please smash the like button. It's a free way you can help. And now, without further ado, let's dig in. Hi guys, T here. I'm back. As we know, true crime never stops. It never rests. And now there are some newly released documents in the case of Madeline Soto and Stephan Sterns. I'm going to share some highlights from these documents with you in this video. I am going to crank it out to you without editing it, so you might hear me breathing. Just bear with me. Newly released documents in the Stephan Sterns Madeline Soto case are shedding new light on how Stephan's parents initially reacted upon hearing of Madeline's disappearance on February 26, 2024, and upon being interviewed by law enforcement. It turns out that on Wednesday, February 28th, which was 2 days after Madeline was reported missing and before her body was located, Stephan Sterns took a late-night drive to Northport, Florida. Northport is where his parents, Debra and Christopher Sterns, live. Stephan was staying at a hotel that night with Jen Soto as well as his father, Chris. It sounds like Chris Sterns drove to Kissimmee, Florida, to assist Stephan and Jen in acquiring a hotel room because Jen Soto's condo was being searched. Now, according to Stephan's mother, Debra, who was at the family home in Northport on that Wednesday, at 3:19 a.m., her poodles barked, alerting her to someone possibly driving up, possibly entering the home. We later found out that Stephan drove to Northport early that morning. The question is, why did he drive there? Was Stephan hiding evidence? There had to be a purpose to this very late night / early morning drive. Note that Stephan's father, Chris, has a storage unit in Northport. When the police found out about Stephan's drive to Northport and this storage unit, they naturally speculated that maybe Stephan had placed Madeline in the storage unit. Thus, a search warrant was obtained, and cadaver dogs were taken to the storage facility. Now, according to law enforcement, the cadaver dogs exhibited, quote, a change of behavior, end quote, at the storage unit. However, the dogs did not hit on the scent of a dead body. The cops did not elaborate on what the dog's change of behavior was, so now we're left to speculate about that. Now, could Stephan have gone to the storage unit to hide something there? But did he later change his mind? Once law enforcement got into the storage unit, they found absolutely nothing of evidentiary value. And when the owner of the facility shared the times when the unit was last accessed, it turned out that they were on January 31st and February 16th, so well before Madeline lost her life. Now, when the police knocked on Debra and Chris Sterns' front door, Debra answered, and she was, quote, very emotional. She suddenly blurted out that she'd found the torso of a sex doll in Stephan's room. Freaky. Once Debra calmed down, she told law enforcement that Stephan had been stealing cash from her and her husband. Interesting. Did Stephan steal cash in order to purchase items that would not have a credit card receipt and be traceable in that way? Or did he simply need money? Debra told the police that she had gone outside and called out Madeline's name for fear that perhaps her son, Stephan, had hidden Madeline in the woods nearby. So it sounds like Stephan's mother was already suspecting that Stephan could be responsible for Madeline's disappearance, because this was, remember, before the body was found. By the way, that silver Lincoln that Stephan drove with a deceased Maddie in it on the morning of Monday, February 26, it turns out that car is registered to his father, Chris. Nice move, Stephan. Use Daddy's car to commit the crime and transport and dump the body. I wonder how your dad feels about that. Stephan's car is actually a dark tan Honda. Back to Debra Sterns. She allowed the police to do a sweep of her home and her property on that Wednesday, February 28th. Debra later told the authorities that she views Stephan as a monster, and she wonders why people blame her and her husband Chris for Stephan's behavior and this crime. Interesting. So I'm sure they're getting backlash for their son, which is unfair because parents can be great parents and their kids can still turn into monsters, can still break the law, become criminals. It's not always the parents' fault. Now, when the detectives spoke to Chris Sterns, Stephan's father, Chris stated that when he met up with Stephan to help him and Jen Soto get the hotel room on Wednesday, February 28th, Stephan appeared to be extremely exhausted with a, quote, heavy weight pressing on him. So Chris also wasn't buying Stephan's story about accidentally doing a factory reset on his cell phone, not once, but twice. So Chris sounds like he too was internally ruminating about his son's potential involvement in Madeline's disappearance before her body was found. Now, Stephan, Jen Soto, and Chris Sterns all spent the night of February 28th at the hotel. And apparently Stephan left the hotel at some point that night between 11:15 and 11:30. Chris Sterns would later learn that Stephan drove to Northport that night. While the police were talking to Chris Sterns on Thursday, February 29th, Chris received a call from another law enforcement agency who told him Madeline's body had been recovered. After the call, Chris appeared, quote, solemn and upset. Chris told the authorities that Stephan left a gaming computer at his and Debra's house, and that he, Chris, had placed the computer in the garage after Stephan was arrested because he no longer wanted it in his home, and he believed it might be of evidentiary value to law enforcement. So Daddy was already thinking his son might have some nasty stuff on that computer. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. I'll be sharing more of what's in these documents in the upcoming days. I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories.